I will send you the roadmap in the chat. Moreover, don't forget to submit your abstract before the 18th of April. And now I would like to give the floor to the UNICA President, Luciano Saso, and Gonzalo Moraes da Mota from NOVA University for the welcome addresses. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the session. Please, Professor Saso, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Laura. Hello, good evening to everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to be here. I'm Luciano Saso, I'm the president of UNICA, and it's really important for UNICA to organize the student conference this year, in this very special year, 2021, during the pandemic that we are living. We know that for you students, this is not an easy period, that sometimes you are tired, of being in front of the computer to attend classes and to do other activities. But we feel, and we are trying to do so, that this event online that we are going to organize in July, between the 19th and 21st of July, hosted virtually by the University Nova de Lisboa, will be an important event. And we're also trying to reflect and organize and design an event which should not be boring for you, but engaging and interesting. And that is why actually we planned for this year something a little bit different compared to what has been done before in the student conferences in UNICA. Before COVID, UNICA was organizing conferences in person every 2 or 3 years. There were amazing events. I'm very proud to say that I organized the one in Rome in 2010, together with other colleagues, of course, from my university, Sapienza, and the other colleagues at Tor Vergata, Roma 3, and Foro Italico. And then we repeated this experience in 2017 again, because we really loved this activity. And so the in-person UNICA Student Conference were fantastic, were amazing. But there were problems also there in terms of engaging students between the events, between one conference and another one. Very often it was difficult to organize activities. The students, of course, they were graduating, so they were changing all the time. So I think after COVID, of course, this is a very difficult period for all of us, so we are aware. But there is the advantage that we can organize easily online activities and actually prepare better for the event. So the event today, and I'm really thankful to all the students who will present today, very interesting presentations. The idea is to have a plenary session today in preparation of the event. So the chairs of the 10 fora will present, some ideas, some information, which will be very useful for the students online to, reflect, to get ideas, to develop again, the contents of this conference and the different fora. And also after this, we will have a more specific webinar. So we call them warm-up webinars after this plenary one, in which really we ask students of the different fora nominated by the UNICA University to discuss, to engage in discussions in different fora. So this format is completely new. Again, the online push given us by COVID allows this format, and we really hope that all of you students online will engage, will participate. We know that you are busy, but again, overall, I'm sure that this student conference 2021 in a digital way will be a success. So I want to thank very much the University Nova de Lisboa, in particular the Vice Rector, João Amaro de Matos. I would like to thank Gonzalo Moraes da Mota, International Networks and NOVA Community Coordinator, and all the students from NOVA engaged in these activities. Many of them will speak today because they are also chairs of the different fora of the conference. And also would like to really thank for the partnership, other important organization of students, and especially the European Student Union, the Erasmus Student Network, and the International Young Naturefriends. So I think we try to put together a very strong team, a very strong university like Nova de Lisboa, working very closely with UNICA, especially with the Secretariat. And there I would like to thank very much Alexandra Duarte, Laura Colò, and Laura Brossico and Vicky Xonka, the Secretariat in Brussels, working hard for this event and also for others. I would like to thank all of you students, for again accepting accepted this challenge. And again, I wish you a very good and very pleasant meeting today, and also especially a very good preparation for the Student Conference 2021, which will be held in July. Thank you and good evening.
So now I would like to give the floor to Gonzalo from the University of NOVA. Please, Gonzalo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear chairs and students delegation. First of all, I would like to welcome you on behalf of NOVA. I hope you will able to enjoy and actively participate in the preparatory webinars designed for you, as well as in the conference that will take place in July. Unfortunately, it will not be possible to welcome you in person in July as initially conceived. However, I am pleased to share with you that in order to ensure that you can at least virtually experience Lisbon and have some moments of interaction, we created a community engagement team that is currently working on the setup of some virtual engaging moments that will take place in the coming month. So please stay tuned as we'll share more news very soon. And welcome to this first webinar, and I sincerely hope that you enjoy these and coming events. And of course, thank you to UNICA for setting up this fantastic event together with NOVA. It was a fantastic team that worked hardly to make this happen. I hope you enjoy and have a great evening.
Thank you, Gonzalo. So we're gonna start with the presentations since we have a long session ahead. So we are starting with topic 1, Science and the City, which will be presented by Inês Cisneros. Inês did her bachelor in law, but is currently a political philosophy master student at NOVA School of Social Sciences and Humanities. She has been actively involved in academic policy and participated in the UNICA Student Conference in 2010. Inês, the floor is yours. Inês, you are muted.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, so are you already seeing my screen? You are, right. So hello, everybody. It's really cool to be here since I already had the opportunity to participate as a student in this conference. I do encourage you to try and enjoy the opportunity to exchange contacts with students from other cities. It's it's not an opportunity you get every day. And those contacts usually last, especially nowadays, and with these digital worlds, it's even easier. So my presentation is really just a scratch on the surface of our topic. So what I wanted, since some of you contacted me and I've been in your shoes, so I know that the abstract is the more worrying part, because you never know what is expected from us. I just wanted to share some initial thoughts. I didn't want to go too deep to scare you guys, so I will love to read everything you send me. Just take a couple of just read I will start with the description of our topic that was already advanced by UNICA organization. You guys received it on your email. And this is a really helpful tool just to start with your research online, just do a bit of a drafting of where your thought is going with these ideas. So when we speak of science in the city, of course, that you get both the main problems are usually that cities are so close, have such an interconnection with the university. So universities are integrated in a city. They usually are not only named after the city, but they are integrated in the whole landscape of a city, being a city where people usually or historically have gathered not only to lead their communal lives, but actually to govern common goods and in a common way. And so it always implies collaboration, but also, of course, in nowadays, and given the closeness and the fact that the city has this core where our economic lives also happen, and where we feel the pressures of globalization also at an economic level. So it usually implies not only cooperation, but also some sort of competition. This usually, I mean, this is a part of what is normal in the relationship between a city and a university. It's normal for policymakers to work closely with rectors and to try and see how the university can benefit, because it does benefit the city, and how the city can accommodate the university's goals. But at the same time, so this cooperation reflects on the reality of the city. So the city usually creates a lot of jobs, just to be practical. For example, it's not unusual that between professors, students, and the staff of a university, around 10% of a city's GDP or wealth is made around the university. The fact that universities are innovation hubs nowadays, for example, there has been, and you probably have witnessed, the adaptation of buildings. So not only leading the intellectual thought and new waves of thought, but also with technological and research projects. The university itself can make this transition real, but also, again, working with the city where it is integrated, it can change the landscape of the whole city. For example, not only, and as I was saying, probably some of you have already witnessed the transition of your university buildings into smart buildings, into more eco-friendly buildings, but also it can have impact on how the city is structured too. So it definitely can change the drawing of a city, but also its demographical composition. So of course, students imply that new people is coming to the city from everywhere, which means also a cosmopolitan environment, and also the fact that it's demographic changes. So even if a university is located in a, for example, a more aged city, or a less central city, because some cities are not located right at at urban areas, but rather at more, I don't want to say suburban, but the word is lacking. You get it, around the city. So at where in Lisbon, for example, the University of Lisbon is right at the center of the city, but we also have some, the NOVA FCT, for example, is on a more suburban or out of the city, but it's still on the capital, but it's not exactly at a city center. So what I mean is that, of course, it gets these areas are sort of renovated because they're filled with youth, and of course, some people then start to get attached to that location. Nowadays, of course, prior to COVID, I mean, mobility was essential, and I mean, it was normal for people to travel around until they decide where they wanted to stay for a longer period. But it's not unusual that sometimes you form a relationship to a city and then you want to go back and you want to actually work there. And so this can indeed, the fact that you have an experience there can indeed later on reflect on more people coming to the city and establishing themselves there. But also as I said, the fact that a university is located at a city, it may help to think the city better, to make cities more functional, and involve the local population even in their projects. But we'll get there. I took this, so I have a couple of readings to share with the people that will be on my topic. We have already established contact, so we'll be sharing these readings soon. This idea that, so what is the problem with COVID actually? So, because I mean, the digital working or smart working was already underway. We actually, I mean, it would eventually happen that we would be able to work just by using digital tools, right? And some of universities were more advanced already in this field. It has its perks, obviously, but COVID made it mandatory. And so the main problems with this, first of all, I think that it's a waste that indeed some university facilities have been renewed and actually made more eco-friendly, and now we're not enjoying them. But I mean, that is not the main problem. I guess the main problem will be the fact that we will not be working. We will be working, and it will become normal to work with people that we never met in person, of course. But regarding the relationship between cities and the university, what I found most interesting in these readings that I found was that indeed the idea that knowledge was not just something that it was detached from the place where it was created, contrary to what we may think, since, I mean, of course, given the mobility I already mentioned, Erasmus programs, etc., the fact that universities across the globe have to, again, cooperate and at the same time compete with each other, made knowledge something that was not necessarily connected to the place where it was being created. And the impact that it will have, the fact that you are not actually present at, or not necessarily present at your university city, it does make a difference. So this text I found just shows how this idea that knowledge is universal is no longer can no longer be fully subscribed, because it always gets some influence of from the university and the geographical place where it is born. And it makes sense because of the whole experience of being in a university, the fact that we are located at a specific place, exchanging experiences with our colleagues, exchanging knowledge, and working together with people with different backgrounds. It obviously impacts the output that in which this cooperation results. But the I mean, of course, the thinking of the interconnectedness that characterizes universities and cities relationship, the fact that it will, I mean, no longer have to be a material relationship. It will not, no longer, it will be more of a symbolic relationship, I guess. It will definitely have an impact. So here we go. I was mentioning that the fact that you will no longer be, I mean, or for the time being, physically present at the university city. First of all, it can, of course, lead to deployed cities that are no longer the economic and innovative hub that they used to be. Will no longer be, I mean, the population will be aging, and renovation cannot be maybe as quick as it used to, because influx and will, I mean, obviously have a different pace. And at the same time, as I said, for me, the greatest problem is the loss of community. But into what, which community plays actually, the feeling of belonging to a community plays actually a big role, anthropologically speaking, when you think of the creation of trust ties, and how these ties are important when you work together with someone. But and especially if you want to locate these this relationship and this experience, it will become less poignant, I think, because it will not. It will be a theoretical or an abstract relationship that will
Inês,
be created.
sorry to interrupt, but
I'm exceeding my time.
No, you're at the limit right now. So if you
yeah, I will
wrap
finish.
up,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So at the same time, and as the description of our topic already mentioned, and actually is even more important for what we want to explore in this topic, is the ways that the university knowledge impacts cities, not only by developing markets and research centers, but also because it usually involves local population in different ways. For example, and as mentioned in the description of our topic, citizen science projects, which were being deemed more and more as a way to do, as a smart way to do science, if you want to collect data, to study a population, but also to involve people in university work. And the fact that we deem cities where universities are located as learning cities, because we can see the impacts of having students there. So wrapping up, what I would like you guys to think is this way. So of course, the digitalization process was already underway. We were already, sooner or later, we would have to work, to be able to work remotely, because some platforms were already implemented in a lot of schools. But this will have, how will this impact the way we work together, not only amongst scholars and students, but also with the city where our university is located? What impact will this have at the not only at the output of our work, but also, as I mentioned, demographically, anthropologically, and how can we still do good science and think of our universities as the place where we exchange knowledge if if we have no connection to that place. So this is the thoughts I wanted to let you with. But let's have more conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inês. If you have any questions for Inês, you can do it in the Q&A or address at the end. We now proceed with Juan Rayón González from Erasmus Student Network. With a background in law and international relations, he is working towards becoming an EU civil servant, as he describes himself. He's presenting topic 2, Equal, Diverse and Inclusive Universities. Take the floor, Juan.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Okay, I think you can hear me well. I'm gonna share my screen now. Okay. Okay, is it visible? Can you see it?
Yeah, it works. Perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, so our topic is equal, diverse, and inclusive universities. It is indeed a very big and broad topic, but it's also a very relevant one. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some of the current challenges, the current situation, and also some of the questions which we can cover with our work. When we talk about inclusive universities, we're talking about a topic which is very important in the European higher education sphere, which is called the social dimension of higher education. And this social dimension has, let's say, two definitions. The more simple one, which are student populations which actually reflect the diversity of all populations. So having a higher education system which really includes everyone and in which we can see the diversity of our societies. But then if we go a bit more in depth, we can talk about the creation of an inclusive environment in higher education that fosters equity, diversity, and is responsive to the needs of local communities. So we're not talking only about representation, we're going beyond that, and we're also talking about engaging with local communities, providing this equitable environment in which everybody feels like they are part of the university. We'll go also more in depth when it comes to that. So basically there are two parts. First is the outcome component, representation. The first thing that we want to achieve are universities which are reflective of this diversity, but the second component are policies, because in order to achieve those outcomes, we need good policies that we need to implement across the board, from the local institutional level up to the national level. And we'll also discuss different policies that can be applied. Well, the topic has been around for a while, for more than 2 decades, ever since the Prague communiqué of the Bologna process. We have been talking about the social dimension with that idea of reflecting the diversity for populations. Since then, the definition has been expanded and more ideas and tools have been incorporated into the discussion. And since 2007, Bologna countries, so basically all European countries, have started to report on matters related to the social dimension. As we will see, they are not reporting enough up to this point, okay? So one of the problems that we will face is that we don't have enough data to do proper analysis, which we can use to create better policies. And as you know, nowadays, data is everything. So this is a topic which we can also discuss within our discussions. Well, when it comes to some of the current issues, the Bologna Follow-up Working Group on the Social Dimension and Lifelong Learning has identified a couple of very important things. The first one is that each country of the Bologna process was to some extent engaged in the social dimension, but only very few countries are working on the basis of a coherent, integrated plan or strategy. So even though most of the countries are doing something, they are not doing enough at all. So we need to do more things at all levels, as we say. And more than a decade after the first analysis of national activities, we see that very few social dimension strategies or action plans have been implemented. And this is applicable to national institutions, but also to universities. The social dimension argument is very relevant because it connects with several other topics, which are also fundamental to understand the role that higher education plays in society. Social dimension is related to equal opportunity and fairness. So in order to achieve a fair society, we need to create inclusive higher education systems. Then the development of society. So as with basically every topic related to inclusion, this is not only about including people because that's a good thing for them. It's also because a more inclusive society is beneficial to everyone. And this connects to the third part, which is increasing the quality and competitiveness of higher education. This is a priority for Europe in general, for the European Union, but also beyond, because as you know, other parts of the world are increasing the competitiveness of their higher education systems. And in order to improve it, we should really work on the social dimension side. There are different things to take into account when we talk about the social dimension and achieving inclusive universities. The first one is that we have different target groups. When working for the social dimension, when working for inclusive universities, we can either direct our efforts towards the entire student body, or we can focus on particular groups which face particular difficulties. Of course, as usual, one size fits nobody. In order to tackle the challenges that different groups face, we will need to design different policies. And also, we need to understand that in order to fix this issue, we need to differentiate between the different stages in the educational career because they are all relevant. So policy related to inclusive higher education should start at an early age with counseling in high schools and even in schools, information, management of aspirations, which as we will see is a big issue. And also it's not only about access. So once that people enter university, they should also get support because students coming from minorities, from underrepresented groups are much more likely to abandon their studies before they finish them. Okay, let me see because one of the most important predictors when it comes to participation in higher education is still educational background. This is a factor that should be taken into account in order to create any type of policy that wants to address social inclusion in higher education. The background, the educational background of your parents still is a great way to predict whether or not you will attend higher education. As you can see, in basically every country that participates in the Euro Student Survey, so this is not only EU countries, but also many European countries which are not in the EU, there is a huge correlation between having parents who attended higher education and participating into higher education. And we definitely need to address that because that is an obstacle to social mobility. Because as you know, higher education is also a big predictor of future income. This is changing a bit, but this is still very relevant. So if we manage to drive more people to higher education who have parents who didn't attend, we will be working towards more inclusion. Then, sense of belonging, or the lack thereof, is also a crucial part of our topic. Because, as we said before, this is not only about having diverse student populations, it's about creating equal and diverse places in which all students feel like they belong to a community, to a student community. And we can also see that this is not happening at the moment. So even though we have many students with low educational backgrounds participating in higher education across Europe, in basically all countries, they still feel like they don't fully belong. At least they do so in a higher rate than students who have higher educational backgrounds. We should also discuss how we can address this sense of belonging, how we can work with the students since they start university so they can feel fully included. This is, of course, not only applicable to students coming from low educational backgrounds. For instance, students with impairments also face this challenge. And in all countries across Europe, students with impairments feel like they lack that sense of belonging within the higher education community. And this is something which, of course, can be fixed through institutional policies, but it probably also has a lot to do with the way in which we students relate and connect with our peers who have some kind of impairment. So we can also discuss the different factors that influence this outcome. When it comes to women's participation in higher education, so the situation has dramatically changed in the last decades. Back in the 60s, when this topic started to be relevant, what governments across Europe were trying to do is to bring more women into higher education in general. But that's not the problem anymore. Now we have more women than men, way more women than men, participating and finishing higher education all over Europe. The problem is the distribution within different student fields. So as you can see, in education, women are almost 80% of the total number of students, but then in cutting-edge sectors like information and communication technologies or engineering, the numbers are extremely low. And this is very connected to the pay gap, which women will suffer later in their careers. This is also a topic that has several components. We can talk about the importance of role models, the importance of local policies, but this is for sure a topic that should be addressed. Then, when it comes to foreign-born and native-born students, we have some really interesting data, because indeed, migratory background is very relevant, and it limits the odds to studying higher education in several countries, but generally, it doesn't do so as severely as educational background. The issue is that many times these two are intertwined. So many people coming from migrant backgrounds also have parents who have a low educational background. And then it will be this second element, the one which will influence the most. Then we're going to talk also about policies across the board, because as I said, here we need to connect the dots. We need to understand how national policies, regional policies, local policies impact participation and inclusion in higher education. But you can easily see that there are big differences between countries, right? So for instance, we have countries like France or the UK who have a lot of policies in place, but then we have many others here, especially in this area, who are not implementing that many policies to foster inclusive higher education. And then this is, as we also said before, this is not only a problem when it comes to access, because the challenges remain even when we manage to get students into higher education. Then we don't only need to help them to access higher education, we need to help them to stay in higher education and to finish their studies. And here, there's still a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done because really few policies are in place to help these students who face more difficulties than their peers. So we get to the part of the policies. We can differentiate between 4 different types of policies: regulations, funding, organization, and information. Regulations and funding are more hard policies, let's say, okay, because they are, let's say, more connected to either changing laws or creating new funding structures. And then we have other more soft instruments like organization policies and information policies that, even if they are not as hard, they are extremely relevant. And as you can imagine, the role that information policies play into bringing people to higher education is fundamental, because as we saw, if your parents didn't attend university, then you really need to have some role models, some people talking about how you can opt for a different path in life and so on. And that is the role of information policy. So we definitely need to have an in-depth discussion about what are the best policies to foster social inclusion in higher education at both institutional and national level. And then now more specifically into the COVID crisis. So the COVID crisis has been an accelerator of trends. This is not only applicable to the higher education sector, but across the board. But in the higher education sector, there are many relevant topics which we should tackle. So the aftermath of the pandemic may harden some of the existing challenges to achieve inclusive higher education, because it will have a higher impact on low and middle income families. And we need to think about how we can prevent that from happening. Then digitization, this is a very relevant topic. We have all been through, well, we are going through this call at the moment, right? So this is a proof that we are going digital. And digitization and inclusion are really intertwined, because it can be a very good tool to promote inclusion, but at the same time, it poses many challenges, which we should understand and then tackle. Then in-depth data collection and analysis is fundamental for inclusion, but as you know, at the same time, it poses many challenges and risks, right? This is very controversial for reasons related to privacy. There are many national laws which are a burden to collect data related to inclusion, but we know that if we want to create good policies, we definitely need more data. And then another big challenge, which will be increased after the COVID-19 pandemic, it's the employability.
I'm sorry, Juan, you're running out of time. Yeah, perfect.
Very fast. Okay, so skill mismatches also pose a risk. And then the final one, widening access and participation is a fundamental part of inclusion, but it's not the only one. So we should ensure that the students learn about the importance of equality and diversity, regardless of academic field. So we need to discuss whether these elements are being taken into account within the students' learning processes. Then universities should boost their efforts regarding their mission of contributing to society, and stronger alliances with the students and local institutions and communities are needed. But we don't know whether this is happening or not across Europe. This is another topic to discuss about. And then, of course, internationalization. This is a very relevant topic for me, coming from the Erasmus Student Network. But we know that this is the best way to connect global challenges with local realities. But underrepresented students do not equally benefit from it. And that was it. Thanks a lot. Really looking forward to discuss all these topics with you.
All right, thank you very much, Juan. So now we're moving to topic 3, Europe's position in world politics, which will be presented by Diogo Sereno. Diogo is the current president of the Students' Union of NOVA School of Law. He's been actively involved in issues related to migration and education for justice.
Thank you a lot. Let me just put here the presentation. Okay. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be joining this conference sponsored by UNICA that I would like to thank for the opportunity to present and to be the chair of this team that was given to me, that is the Europe's position in world politics. I would also like to thank NOVA University, which is always a pleasure to represent here. This theme of Europe's position in world politics, I think it's a very important theme, especially in the geopolitical context that we are living now, because we cannot forget that at this moment we live in a global context of a pandemic in which all the international relations between states were put to a test, and effectively the political power, as we know, the soft power of the European Union has been put also into the test, whether in, for instance, the vaccination phases or in the political response to the economic crisis. And to present this theme, I have brought you a sentence that is on a wall of a subway station near the campus of the University of Lisbon from Socrates that says, "I'm neither Greek or I'm neither Athenian nor Greek, but a citizen of the world." And I don't go many times to the campus of the University of Lisbon, but when I go and I see this sentence, I reflect always upon its meaning and the message that it has. And I think this sentence is perfectly adapted to our team because it has three mainly elements that can describe our topic. And the first one, the universality of the human being. The second, the opening to the world. And the third one, the solidarity with others. The first of the universality is that ends up showing that the phenomenon of globalization is more and more present, and it's getting stronger, and we can let us fall at the temptation that it's to lose all of the makes us close and all the characteristics that the EU state members contribute to the European culture. Then the opening to the world is where the meaning that we can bring the link between the states and the international relations. So if there is one thing that the pandemic proved, it's that we managed to be connected to, despite the difference of territories, and we can all be linked right now, even though we are not, even though the kilometers that separate us. And finally, there is the principle of solidarity that I think is the most important right now, which raises a great discussion where we can discuss if the impact of the COVID-19 in Europe has implied a greater solidarity between the states member, or if it has contributed to an anti-Europe feeling, let's talk it like that, and into an individual national feeling of each state member. So these three elements are also related with one of the mainly topics that we will have to work about, that is the soft power. And the other three elements almost fit in the three elements that that combines the soft power, or the ability to shape to the preference of others. So we have the culture, the foreign policy, and the political values. And with the mix of these three elements, it will generate four different European characteristics right now. That is the European culture and the identity, the European principles and their values, the European institutions, and the European foreign policy strategies. So I think our great challenge right here is to look at the EU soft power and the position that Europe right now have in world politics, and ask three questions. And this is, if I would suggest, the three questions that our group must discuss. That the first one, that it's the COVID-19 crisis an opportunity to fortify European solidarity, or the beginning of a spirit of individualism of the states members? I think every European, and I hope everyone shares that same feeling that of the European, I think no one wants to see another phenomenon like Brexit. So I think we can reflect upon what can be the impact of the COVID-19 in the relations of the state members with the European institutions. Then the second question that we can reflect upon, it's about our value system of the European Union, and to think if it is enough in tackling the recent challenges, external and internal, to the Union. And this comes with an historical context of thinking the evolution of the European Union, thinking how does the European Union have changed and adapt and overcome to the recent challenges and to overpass challenges, and what have Europe gained and how was the Europe's position in the world's politics reinforced with the responses and with the answers that it has. So it will be our second question. And then for last, after we reflect upon these two questions, a third one is, how can the European Union find new and innovative ways to use diplomacy and soft power? We must start thinking that it's not only the European culture, it's not only the European feeling and a general feeling of discussion, let's say, of whether the states members are into the European Union or not. And we must start thinking with with the opportunities that the COVID-19 crisis has made. So, because from one time to another, the European Union was in the middle and in the start of the digital transaction, the policy from the Green Deal, and all of that was put in pause to start now with the response to the COVID-19 crisis. So how can we look at this challenge that we have today and reinforce Europe's position in world politics? For that, I have here some papers and some website that you can watch out. Most of them are about the Europe's global power or the Europe's power after the COVID-19. I think that will be our main topic, and then I will send this all to all of you, and you can start checking out the texts, and also to have your abstracts with some reference, and that's all. I didn't take many time. May I thank you all, and now let's do the working part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diogo. So you actually bought us some time, but if Vasco is ready, we'll then move forward with topic 4, social media and European societies, which will be presented by Vasco Ricoca Peixoto. Vasco is a PhD student at NOVA National School of Public Health, but he has already a vast experience in the area of public health, mainly in epidemiological surveillance. And he's particularly interested in behavioral determinants, communication, and collective intelligence in the age of social networks. So Vasco, if you are ready, you can start. Yeah. You are muted, sorry.
Right, of course.
Okay.
Hello, thank you. I'm gonna share the screen. Is it sharing?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Just one second. So thank you so much for participating. This is a very, very relevant topic that I think we all understand and live it quite closely. The importance of social media to European societies and social networks, and this is becoming increasingly important in today's world and to the world we are shaping for the future. So this is really not, and actually it's interesting that we can see even in the image of this conference, we have a lot of symbols that are related to social media and to digital media communication. I am from public health, but there are a lot of digital and communication determinants of behavior and consequently of health and well-being, not only of individuals, but also of societies. I'm going to give you some examples, some information, and leave some questions that I hope that are motivating for the next steps, that then we can structure answers and proposals thinking of these problems. So first of all, we can ask how long are we exposed and how is it changing? So we can see a very fast growth in time spent online in social networking worldwide. Of course, we can go deeper in the data that we have, and we can see the change by country. And you can see that no country is immune to the growth to the fast growth in use of social media. You can see a lot of European countries here, and most of them are close to 2 hours or above 2 hours, which is a lot of our attention a day. If you think of it, 2 hours on social media, it's amazing. And this is an average of one of the biggest studies on social media and internet and web use. Of course, it is different by generations. As the younger we are, the younger the next generation starts working with the social media, the more time they spend. And this is also relevant to think about the future and how this will shape behavior, interests, values of these generations. A lot of us, I guess, are millennials, Generation Z, Generation X. This is the generations. For those who are not so familiar, I also had to check it out. And also there is different patterns of use between different social media, the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And a lot of people is looking for it for and it's growing to follow celebrities to find products to buy, and less because of friends and because of being in touch with friends. Change from 2015 to 2018. Are we users or consumers? So because this report, which is a complete kind of one of report that I found, is clearly targeted for marketing and selling, as you can see by these graphs. Facebook and Instagram are the most relevant and most used. People do different things in social media. They keep in touch, of course, with friends and family, but they do it to fill spare time, to find inspiration, to read news. And this become a lot of, for the younger people, reading news is becoming more of a social media thing than a TV thing. And this means you are exposed to a certain types of news. And of course, who is analyzing this data and what questions are being asked? Are we treating, see how 2 billion consumers think? This is how this Global Web Index presents their reports on social media. So why can we think how 2 billion citizens of Europe think? And we can ask different questions and hopefully find better answers for a different future, a better future for you. Of course, we can see what are people, this is with COVID, what are people searching for after the lockdown, after the first lockdowns. And it changes a lot. We can monitor a lot of behavior. And then how do feelings spread? And what's the power of feelings in social network? And who is defining trends at the top? How do these contents share and ignite feelings and sentiments about a specific topic? Is it COVID vaccination? Is it Brexit? Is it a new political party with more extremist ideas? And of course, this should be analyzed and much more in terms of academia and in terms of organized European efforts, and not just for marketing purposes, which is what is happening most of all. This is a tool for super spreading of information and disinformation. This is an example of rumors and notices about dangers of HPV vaccine that was then debunked. But it was very fast and they targeted how it spread. This is a project from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine that targets social media sentiments in posts regarding COVID vaccine, self-isolation, wearing masks. So it targets all posts that are related to this and tells what is the feeling with this. And this we have a lot to understand about this these new opportunities for knowledge, because what is happening in social media is shaping society. And we need to understand what is happening there, and probably we need to be more active because there are very active organized groups creating trends and perceptions in people, and even changing election results, as we'll see later. So this is really a very central topic in the future of Europe and the world. Of course, then we can ask about well-being, mental health, personal life, goals, relationships, values, anxiety, focus. How does this impact? You can see a movie called The Social Dilemma in Netflix. I think it's very interesting to kick off this part of the discussion. Technology that connects us also controls us, or has that potential at least. Then, of course, it can influence brutally, targeting specific groups of people with specific ads that are untraceable, and it can change votes, democracy, and politics in ways that probably we wouldn't want, most people wouldn't want them to, if they understand these dynamics. And it's really a very well organized network using all the loopholes of social media to exploit this. Is it paid targeted advertise, understanding data about specific types of users, that are possibly the easier to change votes, so that we target those with $1 million advertisings for billions of people. Of course, Facebook you can have 500 comments on a post, and actually they are all from organized disinformation. They look like people, but they are pages, like pages that are not people, that you can do as many as you want with one profile, or they are fake profiles. So, and there is organized disinformation campaigns in social media. So maybe we need organized counter disinformation. There is the question, of course, of free speech, hate speech, fake news. How do we change this? Do regulation and policies work, and how can they work, and how can does Facebook and needs to change in terms of transparency and algorithm? This is Block the Hatred, the initiative by the European Commission, but does it work? Share the love. How do we share the love, and can it make a difference? Machine learning is getting better at detecting hate speech, and there is also people reviewing these contents for Facebook and Google after the algorithms do it. This should be certainly more transparent, and we should be able to understand what is circulating and what is changing the world that people see, the reality that they see. Then, just on a more lighter note, gaming or dating. A lot of people is using social media for gaming and online dating. And does it bring Europeans more together? What are the risks? Could it be different? What could be better? Certainly, there's a lot that can be said also on this area of online dating and the future of relationships. Of course, stories, the VIP version of everyone, and the constant need for an artificial form of connection. How is this relevant, and how does this change behavior and connection and relationships? This is more related to the mental health and the way people deal with this self-image and self-promotion in terms of specific values that are thought to be good, and so I need to show this to the others to be more liked, or something like this. And this is, of course, created by influencers, which are a group of people who have a lot of followers and dictate trends and way of thinking. And but who is influencing the influencers? It's also a question that I think we should ask, or what type of system. So what are they selling? What type of people are they promoting for the future? What will the next generation be like if they were taught more by influencers than by friends and school teachers and parents? This is questions we also should be asking. And how easy is it to sell a product, a lie? Online publicity works, and what regulation and algorithms are needed? Because actually we do click in advertising in all these social media, as it's shown in these graphs. Then there is, of course, an eternal fight between information, or better intentioned information, and disinformation and quasi-information, which is basically giving an idea about something through a very superficial message that you cannot scrutinize. You don't have time to go check it out, and it creates a feeling in you, and if it repeats, this will become real. So this is very important, also related to organized counter-information. And how can we do it? How do we empower individuals to think critically, to have digital literacy? How the schools are important for this. So, writing the best headline, or the digital media literacy course, but you have to pay for it. So this, I think we're still very far from this type of literacy being common. And of course, social media amplifies the good and the bad as potential for this. And this also has potential for polarizing people, because you are stuck because of the algorithms in an information bubble. You always see and are reinforced in your previous perspectives and behaviors. And this is also very relevant for the polarization of societies and more disconnection, more extreme groups in societies, and the blue and the red, and less space for a common conversation. And so finally, how does all of this affect European societies and the world? I think we should ask ourselves the impacts in terms of mental health, addiction, anxiety, peer pressure, distractions, social and personal relationships, values and goals. Business and economics also must be considered because it has a huge impact. Politics and policies and elections, European cohesion. Brexit is a good example of how social media was critical in influencing this change. Collective perceptions and worldview, polarization of opinions and known facts, and reality bubbles. And what can we do to make social media a better place? So within these groups, I think there's a lot of creativity that we can have as young academics and students. Advocacy, raising awareness and communication. What can be done? Regulation in terms of ads and fake news, enforcement and transparency on sponsored content, content review algorithms, education, the role of schools, social media and emotional skills, digital literacy, organized counter disinformation, which means having services that, like we have the European Center of Disease Control, we could have the European Center of counter disinformation. The role of big tech, of course, Facebook and Google and others. And then how can we analyze and monitor with this data? This data should not only be sold to market purposes. It should be used by independent researchers to study what is happening and detect danger signals early, and stop this black box that social media is. We don't know what is happening inside. And public algorithms, the algorithms should be public and increase users' power over what he sees versus a more balanced algorithm for exposure to different contents. And of course, the social media can be harnessed for good, a source of quick dissemination of truthful information, increasing collective intelligence and healthy discussions, approximating the peoples of the world, learning from each other's experiences, either good, bad, and ugly, non-polarizing algorithms, social media as fact-checking tool, promote reflections and not just reflects immediate emotions through headlines and very superficial content, and an European social media strategy to address specific problems and reach the right people that need to be targeted in these information bubbles.
Vasco, sorry to interrupt. Okay, I was going to say we're at the limit.
One more minute. And thank you for your attention, and I hope that we have a good outcome from these discussions.
Thank you, Vasco, for your very insightful presentation and for your suggestion to watch The Social Dilemma, which is a very, very good documentary. And we'll now move to the last session of this first part. And I apologize if I don't say the name correctly, so Paria, feel free to correct me. But okay, Paria Moghaddam from the International Young Naturefriends will now present topic 5, More Sustainable Societies, the Role of Universities. Paria is a design student and collaborates with the Laboratory of Sustainable Design of the University of Florence. She is also the president of one of the oldest environmentalist NGOs in Europe. Take it away, Paria.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen, and I have no idea how much sun is shining in my eye. It's amazing. Okay, so I think I can see the screen. Perfect. Can you see the screen? I will.
Yes, we're seeing your screen, so it's fine.
Okay, perfect. So hello everyone. Thank you for joining. So the 5th topic is related to the role of universities. and how can universities actually help for a sustainable society. I would like to start with a holistic approach to understand what actually sustainable development is, to be sure that we are all on the same page, and then start from there. So basically, if we are talking about sustainable development, I would like to use the definition from the United Nations by saying that it should be a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. And this is a very important point to start with, to begin with, because whatever projects or programs we want to inject into the universities or university systems, it should always put into consideration how tangible it is for the next generation of students. So let's start from there. And of course, the sustainable development comes from the triple bottom line definition of sustainability that is not just environmental issues, it's also economical, social, and cultural. Now, so the higher education started to take role in these conversations after 2015's work frame of the SDGs. And basically, so the fourth goal directly is about education. And its goal is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And let's take in mind this lifelong learning opportunity, because we will be talking about it a lot, and there are a lot of research that are happening on this matter as well. Okay, so when was the first time we start talking about she? I like it, it's super feminine, but yeah, sustainability in higher education. So it was in the 19th century, after the Stockholm Declaration of 1972. And then in 1990, over 350 universities signed the Terroir Declaration. And basically, it had a 10-point action plan for incorporating sustainability and environmental literacy in teaching, research, operations, and outreach of colleges and universities. Then, half a century later, over 1,400 universities worldwide signed different declarations. But it's not said that by signing declarations, universities actually put in action long-term plans. Unfortunately, so many universities just signed and haven't taken any actions upon it. Now, well, one of the questions some years ago when I started thinking, okay, so why not like putting all this energy in other institutions? Well, actually, the European Union Sustainable Development Strategy and the United Nations Millennium Development Goals both had put universities and higher education institutions as, let's say, as the place to disseminate the sustainability principles. So why is it? Why the institutions are playing such an important role there? Well, according to Findler and Stefan, there is a research being done. A higher education institute can connect businesses to entrepreneurs, community partners, to healthcare and industry. And to kind of break it a bit more, let's look at this beautifully colored university in the middle. But the thing is, this will really help us to start thinking, what do we need to do for our conference in July? So universities are the hub for environmental sustainability. So it can be because they're energy clients, because they can think of renewing their to promote for sustainable energy by solar panels and environmental friendly energy resources. They can also becoming a recycling hub because there's a lot of action that can be taken for water waste management, to upcycle and recycling of their materials. But apart from that, there's a lot more than universities can do, because the spectrum of stakeholders in a university is huge. It's from local communities, from organizations, from innovation hubs that can happen. And it can go to a global connection, because universities are actually advocating for globalization in the same time, localization and globalization. So one of the points that there's a lot of research that's being done is sustainable competencies for students and staff. And this is where I told you about the long life learning that was in the definition. And so still going further, we will get back to the competencies. And we have enterprises and corporations, of course, because there's a lot of actually case studies that universities put in direct contact the students with corporation to develop a project that was sustainable. And so it was beneficial for both corporations and enterprises. Future industry, of course, is also very much related because a university student graduates in so many cases will be the ones guiding the future industries. So now I would like to get to the adult competencies as an example. Of course, for our conference, we can tackle every other different aspects of SHE, but in this case, I would like to open a bit the competencies, because according to the European Union, the Council of European Union in 2018, we need competencies in order to have a sustainable development approach. The ability to cooperate, problem solving, critical thinking, self-regulation, creativity, computer thinking. Now to have a parenthesis here, because now we are living in COVID time, let's think of how many of these competencies are we actually tackling among our students while having online classes. I'll get back to that. Okay. A very important thing to understand about competencies in this case is a very good quote from Weinert, is that competencies are insignificantly different than learning, because competencies are defined as learnable and not teachable. So that's a huge, let's say, task for universities, because university is very much content-based. And if you're talking about sustainable development in higher education, we really need to start thinking of different approaches to our learning, whether it's learning learner-based or content-based. So this is also a tangible decision that universities should take. Now, European Commission actually said that the competencies should be through formal and non-formal education. I'm not going down in the formal is, there is a typo, non-formal education. I'm not going really into the non-formal education and what it is, because we have different topics with different speakers later. Important thing is that there's a lot of studies showing that competencies through formal, well, is curricula. Formal is content-based, is classrooms that we have. And universities do not have access to non-formal education through curricula because it takes a lot of time. It's learner-based, it's experiential learning, it's time-consuming. And so there are cases that university came up with plans for extracurricular activities, like workshops, seminars, getting in touch with local organizations. There was a case that they started having the blood donation policy. So then, yeah, students would gather together and donate blood, and then maybe have a chat together. So that's a very non-risky action for universities to take, to have various extracurricular non-formal education activities. And non-formal doesn't mean just putting people together and chat. Non-formal can be like the third mission for universities, which is also a good argument for the research. It can be through senior universities, child universities. They can use the place, the space they have, and the resources to promote extracurricular activities all year round, in every time of the day. So we already talked about this. And very important thing here as well to mention is, what are we doing with extracurricular activities in 1 year of pandemic, and how actually students are getting the competencies they require in order to be a team worker, or to be able to establish a good relationship in a job context after they graduate, because we are not really tackling that for now. Well, Okay, I will jump this. And a good example is the PRME, Principle for Responsible Management Education, that was established by UN in 2007. And here as well, we can see like in the 6 key areas for the development. If you look at number 6 is service, volunteering, empathy, social responsibility, global mindset, ethical awareness. It's very important to realize that among the 6 key areas for sustainable development, 2 of them are very much personal skills. And of course, number 5 is academic research, business models, planning, coordination, 4 is intercultural skills, and so on. So there is a lot to do research on this field, and I'm hoping to see what will happen. Other case studies that are interesting, for example, in University of Foggia, they established a way to recognize, to establish their strategic plan. And they have decided to use backcasting approach. And so basically they connected to all the stakeholders, local community, to corporations and entrepreneurs and university staff and students. And by doing questionnaires, they reached to the strategic plan, and the studies show that actually it functioned really well because they put everyone together and they asked everyone's opinion. So everyone at some point felt responsible to bring on this strategic plan for 2030. So it's also a way to measure the sustainability plan in action. Another great example is the living lab concept of jigsaw gardens. I'm not going to get into it much, but it was also in collaboration with a corporation. GAIN, that they basically got into the contact with City Council, bringing $150 million worth of innovation. And it's a really good case study to look at. Another case study was with Harvard University. I think it was 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Working directly with faculty, it was also a very interesting challenge. I would just go forward because time is okay. So this morning I was looking for a good quote to put in the end of the presentation. I saw universities can teach you skill and give you opportunity, but it can't teach you sense nor give you understanding. Sense and understanding are produced within one's soul. And well, I was thinking maybe actually in the 21st century, because of the sustainable and higher education policies we have, maybe we can actually touch one's souls via universities. Thank you so much, and hope to see your abstract and work together.
Thank you very much, Paria, for this very interesting presentation, and also for reminding us that sustainability goes beyond environment. Gonçalo, my colleague from NOVA, will present the second part of this session after the break, of course.
We have now a short break. Me and my colleague, we just shared with you some information for the next events. You can also have access to the shared document where we will have all the documents useful for the next events. So enjoy the break and see you in 10 minutes.